father will hear about this.
Is that a threat? Professor Moody! Is that a threat?
Harry Potter may have some absolutely epic moments, but it also has some scenes and lines that are, shall we say, a little less impressive and are often extremely awkward or leave us cringing hard. In this video, we're going to take a look at 15 of the most cringeworthy moments in the Harry Potter series that left us looking like we were sucking on a lemon. And spoiler warning, Goblet of Fire features heavily on this list. As we mentioned earlier, Goblet of Fire has a number of awkward and cringeworthy moments to warrant a whole video of its own, and while it's actually my favorite book in the series, the movie, in my eyes at least, was a little wanting in parts. But before we dive into the nitty-gritty of cringeworthy moments in the movie, we have to start talking about the hairstyle, which pretty much every male teenager sports in the movie, and it looks like it was a cross between a Springer Spaniel and James May. Now, while we can attribute the bizarre long hairstyle to those awkward teenage years where we all had a haircut we regret, and the fact that it was the early 2000s, you have to say the hairstyles sported by Harry, Ron, and the Weasley twins aren't exactly, great. Of course, we couldn't do this video without mentioning the moment Dumbledore sprints across the room, grabs Harry, and shakes him and yells,
"Put your name in the Goblet of Fire."
No, sir.
Which is kind of borderline abuse, but seeing as this is Hogwarts and they send out kids to the Forbidden Forest for detention and have giant three-headed dogs chilling in rooms, it's kinda tame. In the book, Dumbledore says the line calmly. However, in the movie, he's not quite so calm, is he? Keeping on with Goblet of Fire, it's awkward enough having a scene with Harry taking a bath, but throwing in a ghost called Moaning Myrtle, played by an actor who was in her 40s at the time, and have her awkwardly flirt with him and try to seduce him is just very, very uncomfortable. I have no idea what her endgame was, and I really don't want to know. I'm just trying to get it out of my head. Harry Potter might be the chosen one, but like most awkward teenage boys, he's not always so good with the ladies. An example of this is the moment he tries to flirt with what he describes as a pack of Ravenclaw women, or when a girl is actually flirting with him and he, albeit jokingly, attributes it to the fact that he's the chosen one. But the most awkward moment is when Harry and his crush, Cho Chang, lock eyes from across the room in what should be a truly romantic moment, only for him to accidentally spit up pumpkin juice all over himself. Smooth, man. Smooth. Next on this list is the moment a traumatized Ron and his James May haircut enter the Gryffindor common room, accompanied by Ginny and co. after asking out Fleur to the Yuletide ball. Well, kind of, more like he yelled it at her and then ran away. It's an awkward story, and even more awkward due to the fact that it all happened in front of his sister. Yeah, bet she didn't live that one down. Continuing on with Goblet of Fire, yes, we are still on Goblet of Fire. This one might just be me, but the introduction of the foreign exchange students is pretty awkward. Whether it be Hagrid waving them down as if they were a plane, seriously, has he ever even been to an airport? Or the Beauxbatons' strange entrance, or Seamus saying, "Blimey, that's a big woman," or the fact that Filch, for some reason or other, gets in the way of Victor Crumb in his angry walk, or the parkour moves that would put Michael Scott to shame.
Parkour!
Okay, last Goblet of Fire moment, we promise. Is there anything worse than being in a romantic one-on-one spot with your crush only to have them turn you down? Especially when they turn you down for Batman himself, Robert Pattinson. Well, that's exactly what happens to Harry. As he finds himself alone with Cho in the owlry, which, actually now that I think about it, isn't that romantic when you take all the owl poop into account, he shoots his shot and asks Cho to go with him to the Yuletide ball, only for him to get shut down as she is already going with Cedric Diggory. Ouch. However, Harry does eventually get the girl, after Batman dies, and the two end up sharing an intimate yet very awkward first kiss in the room of requirement. What makes this more awkward, though, is the fact that Harry details the kiss to Ron and Hermione afterwards, describing the kiss as wet, as she had been crying over her dead boyfriend only moments before. What makes it doubly awkward is that Cho sells out Harry and the rest of Dumbledore's army later on, effectively ending their relationship once and for all and sending him into the mince pie dispensing arms of Ginny. And look at that, we're finally off of Goblet of Fire. Speaking of Ginny, she also has enough awkward and cringeworthy interactions with Harry to make her very own video, and to be honest, the two make for such an awkward pairing that I kinda preferred him with Cho, in the movie at least. Whether it be the moment Ginny feeds Harry those aforementioned mince pies, I mean they're mince pies, they're not exactly tricky to eat, or their very first meeting, or the time Harry zips Ginny into her dress and they have their very awkward kiss interrupted by her brother George. But for me, the most awkward and cringeworthy interaction perhaps in the whole series is the time she ties his shoelaces in Half-Blood Prince and they have that nearly kiss. Seriously, the chosen one can't tie his own shoelaces or feed himself? I think we need to elect a new chosen one. My vote's Neville. Speaking of awkward, intimate encounters between characters, like the Dumbledore yelling scene, this video would be impossible to make without mentioning the moment Voldemort gives Draco a hug during the Battle of Hogwarts. The hug and weird pat would be cringy enough on its own if it weren't for Voldemort's insane and hilarious, but maybe not intentionally so, guttural laugh. Also, as you're probably aware, this moment was unscripted and improvised by Ralph Fiennes, and I can only imagine how uncomfortable/terrified Tom Felton is in this scene. Also, honorable mention for this scene is the moment the goat Neville stands up to Voldemort, only to have Seamus say, "Stand down, Neville." Like, why, Seamus? Why are you like this? It's like you're begging me to hate you. Speaking of Voldemort, though, the moment he and Harry fall from the tower is, for me at least, inexplicably cringy. Maybe it's the framing, the dialogue, the delivery, or just watching Voldemort and his bald head in another creepy embrace. The scene just makes me laugh, and I'm not sure that's what they were going for. Also, honorable mention, another awkward embrace comes in the moment Ron dances with Professor McGonagall, although that is admittedly more wholesome and funny for the right reasons. Harry and Ginny and Voldemort and Draco aren't the only awkward couples in Harry Potter, and Ron and Hermione have their share of cringy moments. Although that being said, we still loved seeing them finally get together. But before they finally end up together, Ron tries to break out of the friend zone early on by asking Hermione if she wants to get closer, but then saves himself by saying closer to the Shrieking Shack. But again, before the two get together, there's still some more awkwardness between them. Especially the moment the Horcrux shows Ron a vision of Harry and Hermione in very uncomfortable CGI, hooking up, shall we say. Just like Harry and Myrtle in the bath, no one wanted to see that. Apparently the scene was originally meant to have Dumbledore in it too, but thank goodness they changed it. The last Hermione and Ron interaction we'll mention in this video is the moment that Ron, while unconscious, calls out for Hermione while his current girlfriend, Lavender Brown, is right there with him. Yeah, that's uncomfortable. To be honest, Lavender in the whole movie and her thirsting for Ron is cringy enough, but another awkward encounter comes when Hermione, who is very obviously upset over her crush for Ron, attacks the oblivious Weasley with the birds after she sees him with Lavender. One character we've only briefly mentioned so far is Draco, and of course, that guy also has his fair share of cringy moments, and in particular, the way he bullies Harry and Ron. Whether it be calling Ron Weaselbee, sick burn bro, while wearing a fur hat, or him and his cronies pretending to be Dementors to annoy Harry only to cry like a baby after being slightly wounded from Buckbeak, is pretty cringy. Have to admit though, the emphasis he gets on the letter P while saying Potter is pretty impressive. Let's end on an honorable mention, and although it's never fully addressed, how about the moment Ron realizes the rat he's been sleeping with for years is actually a full-grown man who murdered his best friend's parents? Oh, not awkward at all.